The sweaty palms, the rapid heartbeat, that mixture of excitement and anxiety as you step into the driver's seat, about to embark on the most incredible journey the universe has ever known. We all remember what it was like to take the driving test. And if you're anything like me, you shudder just at the thought of it. Sure, it makes sense why you need to pass a driving test before you're allowed to hit the open road and drive off into the sunset, but why do they test the things that they test? Why did the US start requiring drivers to pass tests? Are they really as effective as we think? Jerry's got your back, so let's get into it. The first driver's exams were introduced in Rhode Island in 1908, the same year Henry Ford launched the Model T. While comparatively the Model T is much less complex than a modern car, cars today are much easier to operate thanks to upgraded computer systems, more efficient engines, automatic transmissions, and much more. So in order to properly and safely operate the Model T, drivers had to pass a written test that showed they understood the basics on how to operate it, such as the process of turning it on, steering, and braking. Over the next half century, the rest of the nation followed suit, with South Dakota being the last state to institute driving exams as a requirement for licensure in 1959. But as cars have evolved in size, complexity, and speed, driving tests needed to keep up. Exams in the early 20th century mostly consisted of only a written test that ensured drivers had the basic knowledge to drive. But as motor vehicle death rates began skyrocketing in the 1930s and 40s, states decided they needed to implement a road test as an adjunct to the written tests to ensure drivers possessed the refined skills needed to safely operate a car. These road tests were very basic though, and mostly only tested people's ability to turn, stop, and start the car. However, as more and more Americans passed the test and became licensed drivers, roads became increasingly congested and therefore much more dangerous. Throughout the 60s, motor vehicle death rates began to soar, peaking in 1969 with 27.7 deaths per 100,000 people. It was at this point many states began expanding the driving test even further, adding complex traffic situations that we all love, like parallel parking, three-point turns, and merging onto highways to the exams. These have remained as staples in modern driving tests as the maneuverability portion of the exam, which tests the precision at which you're able to operate the car. After the introduction of the maneuverability requirements, traffic death rates dipped briefly, but spiked again in both 1979 and 1988, reaching motor vehicle death rates of 23.8 and 20.1 per 100,000 people respectively. However, defensive driving techniques were adopted by states and added to driving courses and exams, which helped steadily push death rates down over time. Okay, so why did defensive driving work so well? Well, defensive driving gives drivers tips and tricks to prepare for and react to unexpected incidents on the road, emphasizing the idea of controlling what you can control. For example, if someone is tailgating you, you should give yourself some extra space between yourself and the car in front of you, so if they slam on their brakes, you have time to apply your brakes and not slam into the person tailgating you. I mean, I still vividly remember my driving instructor writing the words "mow distance, mow better" on the chalkboard every day during our driver's ed classes, and I still think about it every time I drive. So, thanks to the addition of defensive driving, maneuverability, and increasingly extensive written exams, motor vehicle death rates reached a 95-year low in 2014 at just 11.1 deaths per 100,000 people. But more recently, that number has begun to spike again, with it reaching 14.3 deaths per 100,000 people in 2021. Distracted driving and increases in road rage incidents involving deadly weapons have helped fuel this spike, which has left people wondering, do driving tests still work? Where do we go from here? Over the years, the leading causes of car deaths have had less to do with one's ability to operate and maneuver a car properly, and more to do with poor driving habits such as distracted driving, driving under the influence, speeding, and not wearing a seatbelt. This type of behavior is also difficult to test using the typical 15 to 30-minute driving test formats, and has led to an increase in demands for stricter enforcement and punishments for those who engage in these risky behaviors. As road safety standards continue to change, along with the introduction of self-driving vehicles, I'm really interested in seeing how driving test requirements and road law enforcement will change, because it will. But in the meantime, I'll continue being a defensive driver, emphasizing mow distance, mow better, while following all road laws to keep myself and others safe.
Jerry, the AllCar app that's got your back. Because we car.